So what I have in my hands here is a real Low Pro deck, Chima Ferguson. So here's the Low Pro logo. It's a Chima Ferguson 8.25. So I remember looking on the website and looking at these and wondering, like, what does Low Pro mean? I mean, it shows a picture and you can see the daylight coming out of this side and that side. So what this means is that the flat part of this deck actually has a slight camber to it. So it's slightly convex or concave, depending on which side you're on. But you get the idea. So it also has insanely steep kicks in the first place, and then it kind of dishes out in the middle, and it's got a crazy steep feeling and like almost more pop than I know what to do with. But anyways, let's start with the measurements first. So it is an 8.25, and over the back bolts I'm reading 8 5/16, maybe even 8 5/16 plus, and they're 8 5/16 plus. So sort of like my last reel deck, this one is actually closer to an 8.38 than an 8.25. Also, I want to really quickly say thanks to Scott for sending this to me. Next, let's check the length. It is a hair under 32. It's like 31 15/16. So it's close enough to call it a 32. Measuring straight across, of course. Check the wheelbase. It's a hair under 14 7/16. So the wheelbase is almost a 14.5. Like, it's bigger than 14 3/8. We got a long wheelbase on this relative to the length. Tail is just under 6 3/4. The nose is just over 7. So it's got a bigger nose than a tail as usual. Fingers of flat is about 2 to 2 and a bit. Same with here, about 2 to 2 and a bit. So it's got a centered wheelbase, which is what I like. So first things first, let's do the straight 8. Now keep in mind, I haven't skated this and don't have control over it yet. This deck has such steep kicks and such deep concave that it has more power than I know what to do with, and I can't actually control it yet. So I'm riding it with Thunder 149 lights. So these have the forged base plate, the hollow kingpin, and the regular axle. And that's gonna widen the wheelbase a little bit by having the Thunders on it. So basically, I mean, these wheels are really far apart, like much more than I've had in a while. I'm gonna crunch through these ledges real quick for a bit. Look at the size of the raindrops that just started falling. That is like 20 seconds of rain. Time to get out of here. All right, well, that last one wasn't bad, but I'm still not sure I'd want to take it home to meet Mom. So I'm gonna keep working on it. What I'm noticing is, like, there's just so much kick here. I've got to like lean way further back than I'm comfortable for on 360 flips. We'll try a couple more. Okay, so consistency is not great yet, and it does take a Herculean amount of effort to actually do it, but there's a lot of yield. Like, I don't know if it's showing on camera, but I'm actually kind of popping my 360 flip. So if I was like 15 to 20, I'd be pumped on riding these things because I'd have like the young legs and ankles to like get all my muscle memory for a big burly board like this. Anyways, let's take a look at the shape, and I'm gonna do a bunch more flat ground on this thing, see how it feels. If you can see, it doesn't have the same full shape. There's a very slight taper to it. Not much, a really pleasing amount of taper actually. That's the nose. Here's the tail. Again, just a little bit of taper. Let's look at it this way. So now what I'm trying to show you is the crazy amount of concave. Like, there is such a deep dish in this thing. So much concave. Probably if I put a straight edge across, there'd be like a 1/2 inch of concave across this dish. So one really cool thing about there being so much concave that I'm starting to notice is you can ride a truck like these. So these Thunder 149s with the forged base plate are like a little bit lower than your standard Thunder, I think, because they're just a tiny bit lower by making that base plate squished down and forged. But what I'm noticing when you have so much concave is where your wheels carve in and hit for wheel bite. Well, it's turned up so much, I actually probably have like an extra 2 millimeters of clearance for wheel bite over other decks. So there's one huge benefit of the deep concave on something like this. Less wheel bite on a lower truck. So I've been riding this deck for about 2.5 weeks. You can see I'm down, 2.5 plies there, 2.5 plies there. So it's pretty resistant to razor tailing. After about a week, it broke in. So it didn't like let go or go soggy, but it was like insanely stiff for the first week. Like actually a little bit too much, which is a good sign for longevity and value. But then it started to let go a tiny bit. And so by let go, I just mean breaking in. It still has tons of pop, it's just a little bit flexy now. And the nose and tail on this are so steep that it's just like, I don't think you're ever gonna not have pop on this deck. However, it's steep to the point that for some people it's gonna be way too much. And I have recently switched to my Indy 149 standards, so 55 millimeter high truck. And one of the things that's starting to happen a fair bit is like, this is now a true power board. And if I do not kick down like it's my last attempt at a trick on earth, then sometimes I ghost pop. So with this board, I now have insane pop, but my consistency is down. So if you can't tell, I really like the way reel decks work with Indies. So the downside to this though is because it takes so much effort to do all my tricks, and because I'm 36, I kind of can't get more than like 2 or 3 tricks in a row because like the old mitochondria cells in my legs just like can't store enough energy to do like 5 or 6 really explosive tricks in a row. So there's one of the downsides, is I just am able to do less tricks in a row and I kind of have to conserve my energy a bit more. So I do find this kind of funny. I think Deluxe did this unintentionally, but they make the best decks for Indies and then they make the best trucks, Thunders, for like just about every other brand that has shorter wheelbases. So they kind of have both bases covered there. And you can ride this deck really well with Thunders. I really enjoyed it a lot too. There's just, you can skate it differently on Indies and I'm enjoying that now. So another thing I really like these type of decks for is getting onto really tall ledges. I've been working so much lately, that's the best these tired old legs can do. But I'm happy I can get up to an almost knee-height ledge again finally. So it's got tons of explosiveness and it really feels like it's sticking to your feet when you pop because of that long wheelbase. So if you were a handrail guy and you're like, say, wanting to do some nice lip slides or something, like you just know that when you like power through that 180 onto your lip slide, you know your board's there and sticking to your feet. So I have kept riding this deck for another 1.5 weeks. So this is probably about 4 weeks, which is a long time. and it still has tons of pop left, but the words that I would really use to describe this board is it's an all or nothing board. If you don't give 100% on every attempt at your trick, it's either not going to work out right or you're going to get like some ghost pop and it's going to be kind of wimpy. So my old legs are starting to get kind of tired. I also want a deck that's going to manual a little nicer. I find long wheelbases difficult to do manuals on consistently. And I just want to work not quite so hard. But I would say that there's incredible value in these decks because they just stay stiff forever. I mean, my grip tape is wearing out and I'm starting to get some razor tail now, but this deck is still super crisp. So for anyone who's a little more on the frugal side and wants to get a lot of life out of their decks, I think these are actually a really good choice in that department. But they do work a bit nicer on a lower, lighter truck. So anyways, if you've been wondering what the real low pros are like, I hope this review will help clarify. It's been a great long-lasting deck and I've really enjoyed riding it, but now my interest is really peaked to try the low pro mellow decks. So anyways, hope you found this useful. I'll see you guys in the next video. They're a great long-lasting deck and I've really enjoyed riding.